Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. You know, after 16 years of using Linux, I've become very comfortable with the system. The thing is, after using something for such a long time, it's all too easy to forget how new users approach Linux. So I thought I'd have a go at putting myself in their shoes to try and remember how I first felt all those years ago. So I'm going to have a go at installing BSD, which is a system I know nothing about. Join me after the break to see how I got on. Okay, so welcome back. So I've been thinking about this for a while. When we get really comfortable with an operating system, and after 16 years, Linux has almost become second nature, it's all too easy to forget when you're interacting with new users that many of the questions they ask that we take for read and possibly seem a little bit inane are not overtly obvious to the new user. So I thought it would be a little bit of an interesting experiment to install something that I'm unfamiliar with, FreeBSD. Now, I haven't gone for the plain FreeBSD. I thought I'd give myself a chance at least, and I've downloaded an ISO for a distribution called FuryBSD. I'll put a link to the download in the video description. And it's apparently based on the FreeBSD distribution. Is distribution even the right word for BSD? Well, you know what I mean. And you can download an XFCE version or a KDE version. But apart from having a desktop pre-configured, after that, it's pretty much your vanilla FreeBSD experience. So I've downloaded the ISO. I'm going to fire it up in VirtualBox. I'm going to see if I can install it and perhaps even install a package or two. But I'm not going to do anything too sophisticated with it because I've not read the FreeBSD manual, which should, I'm sure, be my starting point. I'm just going to get something up and running. And I'm sure the likes of Robo Nuggy, I'm sure you'll laugh at me, mate, because I really feel like a noob. I haven't really got a clue about BSD. I remember installing a couple of desktop versions. I think it was Desktop BSD and PC BSD more than 10 years ago. A lot more than 10 years ago. And I didn't use them seriously. I just installed them, had a look, and then probably wrote over the partitions and installed the Linux system again. So I really can't remember much about it. I know that some of the commands, or a lot of the commands, are similar to Linux, but not all. The partitioning schemes, I believe, are very different. And the installation, I'm guessing it's still quite old school, N-curses, but I really don't know. So don't expect too much, guys. I'm feeling a little bit nervous about this, but let me fire up the ISO and let's see how we get on. Okay, so you should see the copy of FuryBSD XFCE edition on your screens now. I've just booted it in VirtualBox, the standard configuration, 8 gig of RAM, a 32 gig virtual drive, and I've set it as BIOS. I'm not going to play around with EFI yet because I really don't know what I'm doing. But what I was impressed at is it took only a few seconds to boot into this desktop, and it's immediately at full screen. So FuryBSD has clearly got the VirtualBox drivers installed by default, which is good to see. I'm just very quickly looking at what we've got here in the menu. the file manager, a screenshot tool and mousepad. We have Firefox installed. We have Pulse Audio and a webcam tool. And that's about your lot. And, do you know, I haven't got an issue with that. I quite like a system that's cut down, ready for you to customize. I wonder if Alt-Control-T brings up a terminal. Yes, it does. Let's just see if we're connected. Ping google.com. And it appears that we are. Okay, all good. There's not really a huge amount to comment on from what I'm looking at here. I'm just doing the right click at the moment to see what we've got. Desktop settings. Have we got many wallpapers? There's a few there. Yeah, not a huge amount, but again, not a problem. So, the thing is, can I install this? I would, of course, if I was doing everything correctly, have gone and read the manual and boned up on what FreeBSD does and how it works and how to do things. But hey, we don't do that, do we? I'm just going to click the Install BSD icon on the desktop. And we get an Ncases interface. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. I wonder if I can maximize that at all. No, apparently not. It looks like it's going to be pretty much set at that. Well, that's fine. So it's asking me to set a host name, and it's suggesting a default of FuryBSD, so we'll just go with that. Right. And here we get to the point where I'm thinking to myself, do you know, maybe I should really have done a bit of reading first. So I don't want to proceed straight away with the installation. Let's see if we can figure it out as we go. So pool type or disks. Well, let's hit that option and see what it says. Right. Now, I do seem to remember that on FreeBSD, when you're setting up a disk, if you've just got a single disk, you set up Stripe. With all of these RAID options there, obviously setting up a server is something FreeBSD is often used for. So Stripe, and it gives me the option there to select my VirtualBox hard disk, which is ADA0. There's a few other devices there, MD0, MD1, MD3. I'm not entirely sure what they are, but let's just click OK. So it's now set to Stripe a single disk. Do I need to rescan for devices? I don't think so. Disk info, well, let's just, okay, it just takes us back to that. And fine. So we need to go back. Right, pool name, zroot. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but let's just click that and stick to the default. Force 4K sectors is defaulting to yes. We'll leave that there. Encrypt the disk. No, not at this stage. Partition schemes. So it's chosen a GPT partition scheme, even though it recognizes it's been booted in BIOS mode. Oh, I see. And if... Right, I can choose. I tell you what, let's go for master boot record and BIOS. Swap size 2 gig. Fine, let's stick with that. Mirror swap, encrypt swap. No, I don't think so. So let's just go to select. Encrypt swap. No, I don't want to encrypt swap. Ah, I need to move up. Proceed with installation. Well, there's no other options, so I'm going to click yes. Last chance, are you sure? So ADA0 was the disk I chose, so let's hit yes and see what happens. Right, and it's doing its thing. So I'll speed this bit up and I'll come back once more interaction is needed from myself. Right, so it's now asking me to set a password for root. Okay, and I presume at some point... Oops, am I even there? Let me try that again. Right, clearly it wasn't giving me the asterisks, so it did work. So let me try again. Please invite your user to video wheel and webcam D groups. Okay. My username, well, let's set up OTB. And my full name is OTB. Vid, leave empty for defaults. Login group, OTB, okay. Login group is OTB. Invite into other groups. I thought, so yes. Right, so how do I actually do this? How about if I just put wheel? Login class, okay, that seems to have worked. Login class default. Shell, I'm just going to put bash here. Let's stick as much as possible to what I know. Home directory is home OTB. Home directory permissions, leave empty for default, okay. Use password-based authentication, yes. Use an empty password, no. Use a random password, no. Let me set my password. And again. Lock out the account after creation, well, no. So what do we got here? OTB, UID 1001. Groups, I'm in the OTB and the wheel group. I don't know if wheel works the same way as it does in Linux. I set up wheel normally to make it easy to set up sudo. Okay, looks okay to me. Add another user, no. Right, so it now wants my locale, and I'm looking for Europe, London. Why is London not there? United Kingdom. Okay, fair enough. Does the abbreviation BST look reasonable? British Summertime. Yes, it does. Yeah, that's correct. Monday the 25th. And what time is it now? Okay, that's correct. 11:34. Press any key to reboot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut this system down. I'll then reboot and I'll come back and we'll see where we're up to. Right, so I'm now rebooting the system and let's see what happens here, which should be interesting. Can't find bootloader, can't find ZFS bootloader. So that would appear to be a bit of a problem. Right, let me shut this down and see what I can find out. Right, we're finally at what looks like light DM. So I couldn't figure out why it wasn't booting, and I thought, well, the only thing I really changed here was bias and MBR as the method, which sounded to be the simplest method for me. I wonder if that's done something. So I reinstalled it, but this time I left it just at the default of GPT BIOS. And what you know, this time it's actually booted. So let me just log in and see where we're up to. Oh, let me capture the mouse to start off with. And see if we get our full screen FuryBSD. And we do, and it's changed resolution automatically, which is good to see. And we now have the installed system. And you know, right from the word go, what I would say to you is this has given me an appreciation of just how useful welcome screens are on systems that you're unfamiliar with. I think after a while we, as Linux users, get so used to using the command line that we see the welcome screen as almost irrelevant. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, I haven't got a clue where to go next. Is there any help documents there? No, it would appear not. This is just a very plain desktop. Right, so let's go to the web browser and the FuryBSD page as the starter. So I'm waiting for that to launch. And okay, all good. So if I search for FuryBSD, here we go. What is this telling us? The handbook. Okay, well, that's probably a good start. Installation we've done. Let's go to updating. Now, I do know that FuryBSD, being basically a FreeBSD system, can use the port system where I suppose it's a little bit like the AUR. My understanding is there's build scripts and you can compile the packages, or you can use binary packages as well. So the FreeBSD update fetch and the FreeBSD update install look to me like they are interacting with the port system. I don't really want to do that at this stage. I need to find a little bit more out about the system. Failed to execute terminal emulator. Interesting. So let me try Control-Alt-T to see if it brings something up. And what's the help? Well, it's brought up the XFCE terminal now. Let's just try that again. Terminal emulator. Yeah, it might be something different to the XFCE terminal. Obviously is, maybe Xterm. Let me go to SU. Which has taken me to root, so that's exactly the same as you'd find on a Linux system. And let's update the packages. There's not that many, so it shouldn't take too long, he says. And then we'll see if we can use PKG to install a couple of applications. While that's doing that, I think the best thing I can do is go to FreeBSD handbook. Right, resource for newbies. That'll be me. So, learning about derived ports. Okay, that's just gone back. The FreeBSD project, latest news, security advisories. There's the handbook. And getting started with FreeBSD is there, but installing applications, ports and packages, let's just continue along and see where we get to. So let's go to next. Finding software, okay. That looks to be like ports more than anything else. Package update F, that's similar to what we've just run. And package install, package name. Okay, so what is it going to do? Installed packages will be upgraded. Well, we're going to let it do that anyway. WebKit 2, GTK3, I really hope that's a binary because that takes forever to compile. So let's try and install, I don't know, Chromium. And let's just open another terminal here. I want to see if something simple like Nano is already installed. Yes, it is. So what about Vim? Vim command not found. Right, so let's try installing Vim in a minute once it's finished fetching what it needs to fetch over here. And I think the command is just going to be package install vim. And we'll see in a second. That seems to be proceeding with installing packages. My understanding is that if we use the pkg command, it's essentially installing binary packages for you. Whereas if we use the port system, it would be compiling packages. So let's just try a pkg install vim. Proceed with installation. Yes, please. It's going to install a few other things there, including Ruby. For some reason, I'm not entirely sure why it would do that. So what's this telling me? The CS scope does not have, as a result, it is more likely to have unresolved issues not up to date, or even be removed in the future. So I take it that hasn't actually installed anything for me. Yes, it has. Okay, so Vim is clearly there now. Okay, let's try and install Chromium, which is a bigger package. Proceed, yes please. Now, it doesn't appear this to have any sort of graphical software manager, and I wouldn't normally see that as an issue. Certainly not on Linux, because I very rarely use them. But it all sort of changes a little bit when you're booting into a brand new system and you don't know what you're doing. So we're at 68% here by the look of it, fetching Chromium. It's not coming down very fast, so we'll just hang fire and come back in a second once it's done. Okay, so that appears to have finished now. Let's just have a look in the internet, and Chromium has been installed. And there we are, it's launching. Okay, all good. Right, so let me shut down one of these terminals and just minimize the other one and go back over to FuryBSD and have a look at the updating side. So FreeBSD -update fetch, FreeBSD -update install. Okay. I'm really not sure what we do as far as ports are concerned with that. My understanding was that in order to fetch an updated version, we would do port snap. Actually, I'll probably need to be root here. Port snap fetch. And it would go and fetch the latest snapshot of the ports collection. And I've just read a little bit in the manual, and it says when running port snap for the first time, extract the snapshot into USR ports. Okay, so I haven't done that, which I clearly should have done. So extracting snapshot, verifying integrity. Do you know something? This is taking too long and I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to just cancel out of that. And that's something for me to look at in more detail once I've got to grips with the system itself. So this isn't a review. I don't know enough about FreeBSD or FuryBSD to do a review. I've managed to muddle my way along into getting the thing installed and installing a couple of binary packages. But beyond that, I'm really going to have to go and read the FreeBSD handbook now to try and figure out what I should do and where. So for now, let's go and have a chat. Well, that was interesting. And talk about feeling like a noob. Once I've got the thing installed, I just didn't know where to go next. And of course, the answer is I need to RTFM. I really need to read that manual before I start doing things that could break the system, which is why I've cut everything off at the point that I did. I think I was lucky to figure out how to install a package, a binary package, right before I started playing with the port system. So what do I think so far? Well, a couple of things have impressed me. I was impressed at how it booted so fast and booted straight into a full HD screen. This is FuryBSD, of course, as plain FreeBSD wouldn't come with Xorg or anything else. You'd have to do that yourself. A little bit like Arch, I suppose. I'm not sure what happened on the first boot. It clearly had something to do with me setting the partitions, the partition scheme to GPT. Well, it was originally GPT and BIOS, which it seemed to like because I installed a second time and that worked. But when I tried to do BIOS and MBR, it didn't boot. So I've had to install it twice to get it to install once. I don't understand why. And my first point of call will be understanding what happened there. Because unless I can understand how it uses partitions and partition labels, I'm not really going to gain much of an in-depth understanding. Other than that, I think I got a real appreciation for what a new user faces when they boot into Linux. And I particularly missed having a welcome screen. I would normally dismiss a welcome screen immediately of being of no use to me. But I really could have done one on that screen, on the FuryBSD screen, just to give me a first steps, what do I do now look. Even a text file, some sort of documentation to guide me in some way would have helped. The FuryBSD website gives you a couple of pointers to updating FreeBSD itself and updating your installed binary packages, but it doesn't go into much detail, and clearly you have to dig a little bit further and look at the proper FreeBSD manual. So, an interesting experience, which I'm sharing with you. I'm going to keep this as a virtual machine for the foreseeable future, and I'm going to use it to try and figure out exactly what's going on. I'm certainly not going to try and use it as my main system, but it would be quite nice to just have the option to understand a little bit about what's going on with BSD. At the end of the day, it's another free software operating system. It's another Unix-like system. And I know it's very popular in the world of servers, not so much in the desktop world. And I understand that a lot of that is possibly because it's not as easy to install, and hardware detection is perhaps not all it could be. Nevertheless, it doesn't mean that if you have hardware that isn't exactly brand new, that it couldn't be just as an effective a system as a Linux, because I believe the vast majority of packages that you use in Linux are available on BSD. So this was my first steps. OTB became a Newb again. So that's it for today, guys. Just a quick look to see what I've been playing with. Don't forget to join me on LBRY, and by all means, come and join me on my Facebook group. Other than that, have a great day.